Alright, so what were we talking about?
Okay, let's see if we can actually record this with a dog in between us.
This is gonna be great. She's our special guest.
She is our special guest. We'll see if she gets picked up. Her jingles definitely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you grew up unaware, or definitely aware, not unaware, very aware of fairy law.
I read a lot of fairy tales as a impressionable young child.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the first books I ever got was like just a big book of like classic fairy tales. I think I still have that somewhere. But it was like a gift to me, and it was like one of the first books I learned how to read.
Right.
And just kind of growing up, and you know that fairies exist, and then you like eventually learn how to how one is supposed to interact with them.
Yeah.
It's like that's also I think where part of how I like picked up my mom's aggressive manners, because it's like you can't get in trouble with a fairy if you're always polite, because that's one of the rules. Okay, so two of the main rules: don't lie.
Yes. And
don't be rude.
Yeah.
Which honestly is just kind of how I've tried to live my life.
Yeah.
Don't lie, and don't be rude.
Yeah, it's
not hard. It's not hard.
Gets you out of trouble with a lot of people. A
lot
more
does.
Than just fairies.
Aggressive politeness got me through a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Hi, welcome to Liminal Spaces. I'm your local fur papa, Adele.
And I'm the haunted doll in the window, Nick.
Oof. We're talking about my story this week. I don't know if it's a story or if it's a...
We're talking about your subject.
My subject, my
What's
topic.
Your subject?
So we're going to talk about fairy encounters.
Ooh.
Which led me down a very interesting place, and I actually found out about something that I had no idea existed, and I'm very excited to talk about it.
You're valid.
I wanted to start, so we kind of talked about how you're aware of fairy law. I am too, to a lesser extent. I kind of knew the basic rules, but I didn't really have like a solid understanding of stuff.
Yeah.
It was more of like I read books about it, but every book has its slight variations, so I didn't really have like a solid knowledge.
And it's very circumstantial too. Like
yeah.
there's also so many different types of good folk that like
Yeah.
And each of them has like their own variations of like what their own rules are.
Even just culture to culture.
Exactly, culture to culture. Although I will say most like most fairy stories come from like Ireland.
Yes,
and like,
very much.
But there are a few that I've heard from Scotland. Although they're more like they're treated less like fairy stories and more like separate kind of incidents or creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So,
have you ever had any fairy incidences personally?
I have never encountered what I am sure is a fairy. I was taught knock on wood early in life, which is a fairy thing.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the idea is you're knocking on the wood to like get the attention of the fairy that lives in it, the spirit that lives in it.
Interesting.
So, and you're like basically like knock on wood. I'm asking for their help. I'm asking for their influence.
Interesting. I didn't know that was that origin.
I don't know if that's like actually true, but that's what I was taught.
Yeah.
And I had
sense.
What?
It makes sense.
It does, yeah. And I had like a psychic when I was a kid, friend of the family. She told me I had, well, in like modern words, she told me I had big fairy energy. Which like sparked like an existential crisis at the time because like I was also learning about changelings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a changeling.
Confirmed. I'm unsure.
I was removed from my mother like a tumor.
Oof. Oof.
Hi, Mom.
So yeah, this kind of sparked because I wanted to talk, or I remember like way back must have been grade 7 or 8, where I had this English assignment, and one of the options was to go through this. I think there was a couple different like little information top 10 kind of booklets that you could look through to do a project on or something, and there was one of conspiracy theories.
Oh, hell yeah.
And before I even was like aware that I was interested in that kind of stuff, picked that one and was like, I'm gonna look at these because these are cool. And one of them was the about the Cottingley Fairies, which was the photographs.
Is that the one that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was into?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I looked further into it again, all of these probably 10 plus years later, to rehash and remember what it actually said. So it was in England, in Cottingley. It's a place.
You're probably not pronouncing that right.
Probably not. It's spelt Cottingley.
Yeah,
but the British pronounce things weird.
The British never pronounce things phonetically. They get it too much from the French.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, please. But it was in 1917 that these photos first showed up. It was first 2 photos, and then they came out with more later. It was done by these 2 cousins named Elsie Wright, who was 16, and Frances Griffiths, who was 9. And they had these 2 photos of them posing with these fairies, these little fairy creatures.
Weren't they like cutouts, or is that one of like the theories?
That I'm getting there.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting ahead of you. Okay.
So those first 2 that were that got out there were discovered by Arthur Conan Doyle, who he actually was like a spiritualist.
Yep.
And everything, believed all this psychic phenomena and everything.
I don't know if you found this in your research, but he and Houdini used to be friends.
I did not, but that's amazing.
Okay, no, here's the thing. Spiritualism broke them apart. They used
Really?
to be friends, but then Doyle lost his son, I believe, and turned to spiritualism for like that reconnection and helping with his grief. But Houdini was like, this is all garbage.
Oh man.
And went about, like, basically dedicated like a lot of his life and time to like disproving spiritualism. And it tore like this huge rift in their friendship.
Yeah.
So that's how I know about that.
Dang. Because yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle was like super into this. He believed that these photos were real, and he used them as evidence. He had this commissioned article, I think said it was for around Christmas time, in this magazine called The Strand magazine.
I've heard of The Strand. I don't know anything about it, but I've heard of it.
So I don't know anything either. It was just in the research. So he had one article and he used those 2, and then later used the rest of them in the second article that he wrote for them later on. And later on, past even that, in, I believe it was 1922, he came out with a book called The Coming of Fairies, and these articles were kind of the basis for that.
I've read The Cottingley Fairies. It was an interesting read, but it was like an old one, you know?
Yeah.
I think I read like a revised edition, though.
Probably. But yeah, anyways. So when the first of the 2 articles came out, though, it was met with mixed reactions. Mainly, people were kind of embarrassed and puzzled about the whole thing. They're very confused, like, Arthur Conan Doyle actually believes this.
Arthur Conan Doyle? Arthur Conan Doyle?
Yes, Arthur Conan Doyle. But there were a few that actually did believe that they were real as well. I read a couple reactions, and there were a few who did believe, like, dang, they actually found these things, which is interesting. But then, many, many years later, the cousins admitted that it was all faked in a 1983 article called The Unexplained. And they did admit that everything they did was fake. It was indeed cardboard cutouts that they did. Especially, it was interesting because some of the critiques I remember reading was that the little fairies were very fashionable and very, like, fashion forward and had these, like, modern fashionable hairstyles and everything.
I mean, there's nothing stopping a fairy. Actually, a lot of, like, reports say that they're like behind the times in fashion, so that's actually a pretty good. So you know what that means, though?
What?
A modern fairy dresses like it's the 80s or the 90s.
They are like the embodiment of vintage.
Exactly.
But yeah, so that and that they resembled something that would be in like a modern kind of fairy tale book. So that was like some of the critiques, and it turns out that yeah, they were cardboard cutouts that they had played with. However, what was interesting,
It's a good art project, if nothing else.
yeah, it was a lot of fun because they used their dad. Their dad was a like a casual photographer, like a hobbyist photographer. So they
Nice,
borrowed
yeah.
his camera and just had fun with these things.
Hell yeah. Let girls have fun.
Hell yeah.
Let girls in the 1800s have fun with fairy cutouts, and let Arthur Conan Doyle...
1920s.
1920s?
It was 1917 that they took their first photos.
Okay,
But
let,
still.
But let them have fun with their cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, but what was interesting actually that I thought was really interesting was Francis, the younger one, was actually very adamant that the fifth one that they took was actually real.
The fifth one.
There were 5 photos total. Sorry, Luna's trying to get down. Okay, you go down. There we go. So there were 5 photos total, and Frances, the younger one, was very adamant that she had taken this last photo and that it was real. However, the other one, Elsie, was also very adamant that she had taken the photo and that it wasn't real. So there's some sort of discrepancy in memory. Some people believe, I forget who it was, but somebody mentioned that it could be like a double exposure.
It could,
and so
yeah.
they that was accidentally taken, so they both did take this photo.
So they're both correct.
They're both correct, but I think it's also very interesting that like, well, that I was looking at it and it did look, the fairies in that one looked less solid than the other ones.
Okay.
So if it was indeed a double exposure, Elsie could have taken it and there could have been nothing, and Frances could have taken it actually capturing fairies, and that's why they look a little
but do
see-through.
they like still resemble like the other cardboard cutouts? Because do you have pictures? I want to see the pictures.
I don't immediately, but I sure can find them very easily. So that's the first one. So they do look like very modern and
They're very those are very beautifully done.
but they're very beautiful. They're very like they look kind of, that's just the Cottingley, that they look pretty legit.
Yeah.
At
At
least for the time.
Just the fact that like they're like the shading, the depth, the art of these fairies is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Like even that one, it almost looks like you can see through the wings, which is a little weird. And then that's an image, and this was the 5th one. So to me, it looks almost like it still does kind of resemble the cutouts. So that's the only thing, but also it does look like it could, it looks in that like very gray area of it could go either way, which is very interesting.
Gray area. That's funny because they're black and white.
But anyway, so that was very interesting for the first one. And then when I was looking through that, I was kind of also just I'd got that information. I was looking through to try and find other more recent fairy encounters that people have reported.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, I found this is the thing I don't know if you've heard of, but this is new to me, called the Fairy Investigation Society.
No.
So this is a thing that was
Okay.
actually founded. It was founded originally in 1927 by a guy named Quentin Crawford, and he was kind of the head of everything, and he read a book by this guy named Bernard Slay. I forget what the book was called.
Oh, I bet he just slayed.
Oh, boy.
Sorry. I regret.
Oh, man. But so he sought out this author, and those two founded this thing called the Fairy Investigation Society.
What author?
Bernard Slay.
Oh, yeah.
That was his name.
So Bernard Slay was a author? Like, what did he write?
The book that he wrote that got him interested was called The Gates of Horn, being sundry records from the proceedings of the Society for the Investigation of Fairy Fact and Fallacy.
Oh, God, this guy was definitely from definitely had Puritan roots. That is a Puritan title.
Yeah, it's wild. So I don't know what else he's written, but that was the book that Crawford read and then sought this guy out to found this thing together.
Proceedings of the Society of the Investigation of Fairy Fact and Fallacy.
Yeah, so they kind of founded this to try and prove that fairies existed. And it got a bunch of people. It mostly was people who could claim they could see fairies, or like psychics, those kind of people who like claimed that they had real encounters with these beings and could witness them. And they've kind of worked on recording encounters and that kind of thing. And apparently it wasn't just that. Apparently Crawford did actually try to do experiments.
Okay. What
that
kind
were
of?
This was recalled by current group leader Simon Young. This is a quote that he gave. So, quote, "There is a memory of Crawford challenging fairies to open flower buds in his garden. Then, in his 1957 retrospective, Crawford also recalls some experiments he undertook from 1927 to 32 with unnamed visitors to his house and with a group of 9 marsh fairies. The experiments are not well described. They appear to have involved a fairy seance with a radio set and automatic writing. The fairies would use words from English and Old English to tell their human interlocutors where to look for archaeological remains, which sometimes they even did find."
Okay, archaeological remains of people or fairies?
That was inconclusive. That was not
not relevant to the quote.
It didn't come up in the quote that I found. It was right here.
Side note: have you ever seen those fairy corpses?
No.
Oh, okay. So next future topic.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. So that was kind of the first iteration of this Fairy Investigation Society, or FIS.
FIS.
Unfortunately, when World War II... Sorry?
Oh, no. I was going to say, is it still open? Is it still on? Are they still going?
In a way.
Okay.
So we'll get there. So then...
I want to join.
Just before World War II, they kind of disbanded because of the insanity of it, and it was unfortunately all of their archives from before then were lost.
No.
Yeah, so we don't... they must have gotten destroyed or something. We don't really know for sure, but they... At least not that I could find.
The librarian in me's hurting a lot. I hate how many, like, archives and shit got lost during that time period.
But it was interesting. So then after World War II, about 10 years after they originally disbanded, it was restarted in 1950. And shortly thereafter, they appointed a woman named Marjorie Johnson as their secretary. She was super great. She ran it super well, and it actually became like a real thing. And they had actually more than...
I feel like I've heard of her before.
There's a chance because there's a scandal coming up.
Oh, shit. Okay. Oh, shit. Okay, here we go. Let's do this.
Yeah, so she ran it super well. They actually accumulated around 100 members, and a lot of them were famous, and one of them, actually, Walt Disney, was a part of this Fairy Investigation Society. Like, Walt Disney was a part of it. He might have not have come to meetings, because I think it was in different places, like, geographically, but he was a part of it.
I don't like that.
And that led to what's called, there's another thing before the scandal, because before the scandal, they did this thing called the Great Fairy Consensus in 1955.
Okay.
It didn't ever get completed at the time, however, so it was Johnson.
It's my autobiography.
It's funny, it's not Johnson. Johnson, she super wanted to do this. She was super into it. She teamed up with a Scottish folklorist. Do you want to try and say that name?
Alistair Alpin McGregor.
There we go. That boy.
It's Alistair, though, not Alistair.
Yeah.
Which is probably where you got tripped up a bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this McGregor guy, he's Scottish folklorist. They grouped together and they collaborated. They wanted to
Alistair Alpin McGregor is such a Scottish name. Sorry.
It's a very
That
Scottish
is
name.
like one of the most Scottish names I've ever heard, except for Scott McScott.
Oof.
I have known...
Woof.
I have known in passing a person named Scott McScott.
That's a lot to process.
Anyway.
Anyways, so they essentially wanted to compile into a book a list of like people's actual fairy encounters. So they sent letters out to newspapers asking for people to send them letters with their own fairy encounters to be collected into this book.
So kind of like how we do with emails.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we should talk about that.
That we actually got an email. I'm very excited. We'll talk about that at the end of this episode.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to that rando person.
Hell
We'll
yeah.
name you at the time. You're amazing.
Hey, Kat.
There you go.
Love you. Thank you for writing to us.
Yeah, that was actually very exciting when that came through. So yeah, they didn't finish that census at the time because McGregor wanted to travel.
That's a mood.
And I was like, yeah, me too.
That's a mood.
I don't want to finish this thing. I want to go travel the world. Okay, peace.
I mean, what year was that?
1955.
1955. That feels like a millennial thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very Great Depression thing.
So we will come back to the census, though, because eventually, spoiler alert, it did get finished and published, which is exciting.
What is it supposed to be, even? It's just like a census of fairies?
I think a census of, like...
People who've seen fairies?
People who've seen it, their encounters, what they encountered, what they saw, maybe, like, who believes this.
Okay.
Even, like, skeptics who can't deny that this is something that happened to them, kind of thing.
So, kind of like how when they, around 2010 they did like that that survey of most of like citizens in the US and who believed in aliens kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but with fairies.
Yeah, it sounds like. So then we come to another 5 years later. It's 1960.
Okay.
And
hell yeah, 60s.
Yeah, it starts off a little bit rough for Marjorie.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I just glanced at your notes and I saw I'm sorry, I have to say this out loud. The Great Fairy Sex Scandal?
Yes.
Tell me more.
So it started in this tabloid magazine called the Sunday Pictorial.
Okay.
They rumored about Johnson's book that she was writing called Fairy Vision at the time. Fairy Vision at the time.
Okay.
And it claims that she does a Kinsey on fairies. So it claimed...
That's a statement.
Yeah. So it claimed it would cover... this is the rumored tabloid, claimed that it would cover fairy sex, love, and reproduction, including, and this is my favorite quote of all time, because if this is what, like, fairies, like, love life and sex life is like, this is just...
Are you, like, sign me up, or are you, like...
This is me. I'm like, I am a fairy.
Hell yeah.
So this is, quote, fairies are... bisexual and polygamous, sharing each other's wives, husbands, and children.
Now, that last bit of the sentence, I hope they mean they raise the children communally.
I sure hope so, too.
That's how I'm going to interpret that.
Yes, me too.
Because otherwise that sounds...
a little weird.
Yeah.
No, I know, but, like, it's the 60s wording. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a tabloid.
Okay. So,
but fairies are bisexual, and I would... modernize it by saying bisexual and polyamorous.
Bisexual, polyamorous, and they raise their children communally.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, like, if that's real, she probably only got that from, like, one court, you know?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I want to believe that all the courts are like that, but...
Definitely not. No, it's like humans, but,
It's true.
Society.
She met one group of people and decided they were all like that.
Yeah. Well, she claims, so I don't have this in my notes, but I think I have it here on this other, I have this website called Atlas Obscura.
Oh, I fucking love that Atlas Obscura. Atlas Obscura is great.
So this is from their article on it. I think it said, yes, so she also says that, or this is the tabloid still, claiming that it reveals that fairies don't actually get pregnant, but rather reproduce via wishful thinking.
That's me.
And it's quoted her saying, "It has taken me years of study to win their friendship and discover the secrets of their sex life."
Oh, shit. She's been a part of a fairy orgy.
Oh, you know she has. Anyone who is admitted to the circle of fairy friendship is very fortunate.
Oh, she enjoyed it, too. Honestly, that sounds ideal.
The thing is, at the time, this was very controversial.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even today, it would be very controversial.
Only to, like, gross and sad people.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, like, not everyone's comfortable with the idea of polyamory, and I can kind of understand it because it's been misrepresented a lot.
Very misrepresented. And it's unfortunate because it's actually literally more loving than a monogamous relationship at its core.
And it's more, like, a little more healthy, too, because you're not just relying on one person for energy and everything and, like, affection. You're relying, like, you know.
Loving, healthy. There's another word I had for it, and I can't remember.
Shout out to all the couples I almost ended up in a triad with.
Just being able to, like, fully express your love and affection for someone without being constrained by monogamy. Like,
oh yeah, like I get what you're
in a way of like, say you're in a relationship with someone. This is going off on a whole tangent.
No,
again.
it's fine. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's commit.
So say you're in a relationship with someone, but then you meet someone and you like, because I knew it wasn't like just a sex thing, but I figured like I couldn't be polyamorous because like I don't get interested in people very often. So like, but then I realized like I had it explained where it's like it doesn't have to change how you are, it just gives you the option.
Okay, yeah.
So like if you were in a relationship and you meet someone that you like you have this connection with and you want to explore that part, like you want to express your physical expression of love or care in that kind of way, you have that option. And it feels like, because if you're monogamous and exclusive with that person, because I also heard commitment and exclusiveness I can't speak.
Exclusivity.
Commitment and exclusivity are two separate things.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you're not exclusive and you have the option to share that, it's more just, it's sharing love. It's not constraining your love. And
I will say that communication is a very important part of all this.
It's key. Communication is key. If you're not communicative with your partners, then the whole thing falls apart.
Exactly.
But if you are, it can be the most beautiful thing.
If everyone is aware and consensualing and is talking with each other, then it is one of the most healthy things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, because it just is. I've had it explained in the like, you're not getting your only thing from one person before, and that I understood like before. I understood that to extent, but the way it was worded was kind of hard for me. But so the way that I kind of have come to understand it is like, if you take the friends example.
Yeah.
So like you have lots of different friends.
I do. Thank you for noticing.
And like if one of your friends says, "Oh, you can't hang out with that person," then like that's unless they have a very good reason and that the person they're telling you not to hang out with is actually super toxic. And not good.
If it's like like that's
But if they don't have any real reason to say you can't hang out with that person just because I don't like them, then that's kind of fucked up.
I've been there before.
Yeah,
it's never lasted very long.
Definitely, it's like not uncommon. So then if you just expand that thought process to every relationship you have, not just just friendship, but like romantic as well, and that kind of thing, it's like you're still like the way I've another kind of just going from that, I'm all over this place. I've thought about this a lot recently.
I never would have noticed.
So like saying how your love for one person doesn't take away from your love from another person.
Love is not a limited resource.
Yeah, like I've had it described too as like, it's not 100% and you have your percent divided up between people. It's that like,
exactly, yeah,
you have it's more expansive than that. And I really love this because it's actually just demonstrated beautifully. And have you ever seen the film Her? It's that one where basically Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with Scarlett Johansson, but Scarlett Johansson is an AI.
No, I've never seen that.
This came out like 2013. And
I try not to watch ScarJo movies.
Fair. But it was directed by Spike Jonze. Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson voices this AI, and Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson fall in love, like genuinely fall in love. And so there's.
Wait, them or the characters?
The characters.
Okay, I was gonna be like, wow.
And there's some conflict in that initially, but then it actually grows to being this AI becomes so expansive that she has love for all of these other AIs that she's met through their network or whatever.
Same.
And trying to describe how that doesn't take away from her love for this man. And it just kind of, after having the realization of polyamory and actually experiencing it, you're like, oh, that hits different.
Yeah.
That movie just hits in an entirely different way. Anyways. And I just think it's very important for people to remember in any relationship, friendship, sibling, parental, romantic, purely sexual, someone's love for someone else doesn't take away from their love for you.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying that sometimes there are some fucked up situations, there's cheating, there's non-communication, that, like, it can get misconstrued, and that maybe somebody actually does quote-unquote, fall out of love with you. That's a whole other story. But if everything goes positively,
like in the ideal, like, everyone's healthy and no one's like fucking around,
then it can be one of the like, it just expands your
it's
your
a good
love.
ideal, honestly.
It is. And it's one of those things that, like, it's like I said, like, you kind of, I've had it explained, I've been around it before, I've had people who, like, are in those situations. And I always thought, I get it, and I understand it, and I'm glad for them, but I don't think I could ever do it. But, like, that's shifted recently, so that's an interesting development. We'll talk about that later.
I was like, I want to hear you talk about that, but I also just noticed we're still recording.
Yeah, we sure are. So we'll get into depth
on
that later, if you would like. But actually experiencing it firsthand is definitely, like, a learning curve, but it's only growth.
Yeah,
it's like, a growth process, which is very interesting.
That's good. Yeah. I'm really glad. I'm glad your research in fairies sparked this conversation topic too, because this is, like, I'm learning about fairies, and also, it's nice to be, like, reaffirmed.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's Anyways, that was in the
tangent
over. That was but I think it's very important. It's a very,
it's honestly, like, that's a great
relevant
quote.
Thing. It's great quote. Back in the 60s, very controversial. Even today, probably very less controversial than it was, but still controversial.
Controversial in the public.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Okay.
I would join a fairy commune.
That would be fucking tight.
But
so
I would,
sick.
Not just any fairy commune. I'd have to have feelings for, like, because...
Oh, yeah.
No. But, like, you know what I mean. If I met some fairies, and I'd be like...
Hashtag demisexual.
Hashtag demisexual. I'm actually asexual, but I am very romantic, unfortunately.
See, I'm, like... I don't know.
You're valid.
I'm, like, somewhere between demi and gray, because sometimes there's the emotional, sometimes there's not...
Do you know,
but, like, also there always has to be some sort of connection. It's definitely not, I'm definitely on that scale somewhere.
Oh yeah, you're valid. They probably have a term for that now, by the way.
Yeah.
But, like, even then, like, all of them are, like, as long as you, like, you're comfortable with yourself and you kind of, like, know slightly where you fall.
I know where I fall. I don't think there's, for, like, any of my quote-unquote labels, I'm never exactly one label. I feel in between a lot of labels, but I know where I stand with myself, and that's all that matters.
There you go. That's what matters.
Anyways.
No, you whiny baby.
Do you want to come back up?
Can you come back up?
No. I love getting queer political on our podcast. It's gonna happen.
I feel like that's gonna be part of our brand. Honestly.
It has to. Like, it's who we are.
It's who we are. It's, like, who all our friends are.
If you don't like the gays,
get out.
Yeah, I was gonna say get out, and I thought it was too harsh, but, like...
No, I'll be harsh. I'm not nice anymore. I'm tired of being nice.
If you don't like the gays, this probably won't.
Being nice and being polite are two very different things.
It's true. If you don't like the gays, you probably hate both of us.
Why are you listening?
You're listening to two gays right now.
Why are you listening here? Have I said I'm trans yet?
I don't know if you've actually said it, because we've had it plastered on all the, like, definitions.
I'm trans. I'm non-binary. I'm very gay. I just want to be held.
Mood. Okay.
So,
after that wild statement from this tabloid magazine, Johnson accused the editor of... I love that
statement so much, but yeah, go on.
Johnson accused the editor of false reporting, but the damage was already done. The article basically went quote-unquote viral for what it would have been at the time. Everyone heard about it. So after that whole thing went down, eventually Marjorie Johnson stepped down from being secretary of this, still can't believe, Fairy Investigation Society.
If that still exists, I'm going to join.
Well, I don't So that's the thing. So
Listen, I already have a title and I'm already a minister. I need to join the Fairy Investigation Society now.
So after she stepped down, a British historian named Leslie Shepherd officially took over as secretary, but he essentially did fuck all. He let it die out.
Oh.
Yeah, and that happened around 1990, because I think in this article it says something about somebody had sent him a letter, and they received a letter back, but it wasn't actually from Shepherd. It was from somebody who said they knew him and that he wasn't speaking to anybody. And then about 6 years later...
Do you think he just died? Do you think he just died and nobody noticed?
It's possible.
That's sad. Oh, you think the fairies got him?
I think he... Very possibly. Leslie Shepherd. I think he was actually a famous guy, so that might have actual...
Never heard of him before.
No, he didn't die until 2004.
Oh, okay.
Author,
activist, and curator.
Yeah. Not activist for the fairies.
Rude. That's rude.
But yeah, so then Johnson, in her final draft of her work, because she did finish writing this book, and it is published. It got published in 2014 as quote-unquote Seeing Fairies.
Maybe I think I've read that. Maybe that's where I've heard her from.
That's very possible. But yeah, so in her last draft of her work in 1996, she declared that the society was defunct. And apparently in the book, I haven't actually read it myself, and you probably would have remembered it, but if it was
bold of you to assume I have memory.
I mean, I'm saying in the book itself, there's no gay.
No, they censored it?
I don't know if they censored it or if those claims were actually wildly inaccurate just to stir up
no, that sounds
insanity.
It sounds like something a fairies would be into.
It sounds like it. And so then maybe Johnson censored herself, maybe, just to prove that, like, that scandal was false. So I don't know.
That's sad.
But yeah. But good news. So in 2013, a guy named Simon Young restarted the FIS, but with kind of less proof. He doesn't want to like try and prove fairies.
He's kind of like archiving it, basically.
Archiving, kind of more with scientific ideals of like kind of collecting the reports and encounters, experiences, kind of like the census, but no more. It's essentially the census again, but
Luna.
So he kind of wants it to be more like the census, where it's more kind of archiving the actual experiences. And then I've also seen papers and stuff, like actual academic papers talking about the actual kind of like age ranges and like genders and those kinds of things. Let me see if I have it on here. I think I also downloaded some of them to read later.
Hell yeah. Honestly, that just sounds like a really good... see, the thing is, I've never had, like, a fairy encounter.
It's actually, okay, there's an actual fairy census released 2014, and this is it, where it's basically has... in the beginning, it's got this whole preface of, like, what their intentions are, and so it's like, for what information is here, I took for the purposes of the present publication, only the most important parts of the data for each fairy experience, and it's got, like, case number, country,
so it's, like, very organized.
Yeah, it's very organized, and it's very much about, like, kind of quantifying, like, these experiences, you know, like what time of day, what decade, how old the people were, and kind of just compiling it all and maybe getting data from that.
Definitely going to be reading this.
I can send it to you. I have the PDF.
Please do that.
Yes, amazing.
That sounds like, that honestly just does sound really amazing.
Really interesting, yeah. And so if you would like to, they're still collecting survey responses for an updated census. They're still collecting data for their new census. So if you go to their website,
but I don't have any information for that. Well, I mean, our listeners might, but I don't.
It's not just fairy encounters, which is interesting. So
is it just like what you know or what you?
You can do if you've witnessed the event firsthand. If you're describing the event experienced by someone else, you can also do
a fairy survey.
A survey on your fairy beliefs.
Oh, I'm gonna do that one.
And so yes, you can go to Fairyist, FAIRYIST liminal.com/survey to if you want to include your experiences and your beliefs in this fairy census that they're working on, which would be pretty fascinating to do, actually.
I really want to do that now.
And the rest of the website has like questions, books, types, places, beliefs they already have, sightings, movies, even like they've got so much, which is just very, very interesting. So that's why I kind of wanted to talk about this, because if you look at their sightings, they just have a million. Like, they have so many.
Hell
and I didn't want to go through them all.
No, that's valid. That's, dang. Yeah, this looks good.
But yeah, anyways. That's my interesting find on fairies, which is fun.
I enjoyed this. I love fairies. I've just not had much more than like a very casual understanding that they are out there, they exist, here's how you interact with them, here's how you got to be careful about them. Mm-hmm. Here's another thing. Never give your full name or your real name.
Yeah. There's power, and if you can figure out a fairy's real name, then you've got the power.
Oh, and also don't ingest food. But that has more to do with. That has more to do with their just like the owing a favor thing. Favors.
Is it? I thought it was that they like basically it's so good that you can't escape it.
Oh, there's different.
Got you.
There's different things. The way I was taught was that you don't see, if you take a food and you eat it and you really enjoy it, you've taken something from them and now you owe them something.
Gotcha.
So part of that is like they will stretch that however far they can take it. Mm-hmm. There's like that thing from Tumblr where it's like, if you sorry mom, if you blow off a fairy does it still count towards you've ingested something from the fairy realm and you're stuck there, or is it they owe you something because you blew them off and now they owe, like,
or is it an equal exchange?
Or is it an equivalent exchange? Like, there's like
I guess it depends if you spit or swallow.
Yeah, yeah. So
woof. Man, oh man.
Yeah. But no, like, yeah, so, like, and also, like, the fairy, yeah, like, don't say thank you, say I appreciate that, because if you say thank you, that's acknowledging that they've done a favor for you, and thus you owe them. It's very, yeah, but you have to be very careful with your wording.
Oh, yeah, they're very particular. That's how they don't lie, but they will bend the truth to all hell.
They are so, like, honestly, like, fairy lawyers, holy shit.
I think I saw a post recently where it was like lawyers are fairies. Essentially.
I'm not quite comfortable with that, because not all fairies are lawyers, and not all lawyers are fairies. Sometimes they're demons. Demons are also very good at spinning.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Man. And sometimes they're humans, which are the worst monsters.
Woof.
Alright, so let's talk about that email.
Hell yes.
Hell yeah.
So, we received an email from this person named Catherine.
Sleepy Lizard Girl.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for sending an email.
Catherine says, "Hey, Nick and Adele, I just randomly found your podcast and decided to listen. I like the setup and style so far. Anyway, my favorite liminal space is definitely an airport. It's the ultimate place where no one belongs and we all just travel through."
Thank you.
I was thinking about that the other day. Like how, because I don't really feel myself unless I'm on the move. Like I'm on traveling and everything, and I noticed that the other day, and I was like, but I like buses and trains more than I like airports.
That's fair.
Because I hate security.
Yeah, we had this conversation.
I was thinking about it, so yeah. Anyway, special shoutouts to places like Walmart at 3 a.m.
Any sort of store you can visit late at night that always gives an almost eerie feeling. It's great. Sure is.
Yeah, like honestly, when I think of Walmarts though, I think of like you know, being out in the Hicks and you know, like not in the Hicks, out in the sticks. Being out in the sticks. Yeah. Whenever I think about Walmart, I always think about being out in the sticks because I only used to go to Walmart when there's literally nothing else around to go to get things. So, but like I've never been.
It's definitely changed.
It's definitely changed. But like, I think the latest I've ever been to a Walmart was like 12 o'clock at night. So like,
Yeah.
it was like on that line of like it's not quite like the night, but it's also like
Yeah. So I was thinking there's two different ways to think about this: is if it's 24 hours and you're just in it at a very ungodly hour, or if you're working a night shift stocking shelves at 3 a.m. Two very different vibes too.
Ugh, no, thank you. I have worked night shifts at like Tim Hortons and everything, but those are fun in a wacky thing because usually it's only like you and your coworkers, and if you finish all your chores, you're just fucking around.
True.
Which is fun. But and then like occasionally like one customer will come in at a time, maybe with a couple friends, and that's it. Like, and people at 3 a.m. really don't care what you serve them. Like,
no, yeah, they're either tired or drunk,
and they're like just desperately like
or high,
or high. Yeah, like
they're all just chill.
Yeah. Yes. A smaller thing, but does staying in a place you don't know, like a hotel room or a person's house you only plan on staying at for a night, count? They always give me very weird feelings.
Yes.
Yes.
You're saying that like less so for you, but hotels still?
Hotel rooms. I've stayed in hotel rooms a couple times. Usually, if I'm like if I was traveling with my dad. But I spend so many nights just at other people's places, not in like a haha Tinder way, but in like I stay over at my friends' places all the time, and I have my entire life that it doesn't feel as much. But I still get what you're going with because. Yeah, that weird feeling, especially if you're like sleeping on someone's couch and you're the only one awake and it's like dark and everything and you're like trying to sleep but you can't quite sleep because it's like not familiar enough, but it's also like you're not tired enough to.
Yeah.
Ooh.
See, I'm more even like like I said earlier in another maybe earlier today, I don't know if it's in this podcast or not. In this episode.
Earlier in our timeline.
Yeah, in our timeline. I've lived in the same house for years and years and years. And even when I was living in Toronto, I lived in, like, other than residence, after I was done that, I lived in the same place for the rest of, like, the year and a half that I was there. So I'm not as good. My big Taurus energy is I hate sleeping in beds that aren't mine or houses that aren't mine because it's filled like if I'm home then I have like in the morning I have everything, and especially at night, even if I'm not consciously anxious, my body's like, this place is unfamiliar and we're not gonna sleep.
Like how you can't sleep on airplanes.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like some part of my monkey brain or whatever, my primal brain is just like, nah, we're not safe right now. Something could attack us at any second. And
This
I'm
is
like,
not our
we're
tree.
fine. Yeah, essentially. So that feeling is just like amplified in any sort of like hotel room or person's house that I'm staying over. There's very few. There have become a handful of houses that I can stay over at and feel completely comfortable at, but it's very limited. Very limited. Anyways.
Yeah.
They definitely count.
Absolutely. They absolutely do. And thank you so much for sending this in.
Yes, we sure. She ends it with, or they end it, don't want to assume pronouns. Hope you enjoy the response. We sure did.
We fucking do. Hell yeah.
Like, that's amazing that we actually got an email. I love it.
I love you.
We love you.
A little too strong? I don't know.
We can love. Love is love. There's
love
different kinds
This
of love.
episode is sponsored by love.
Yeah, sure is. Okay.
All right.
So if you want to send us an email like Catherine did, we have our email that you can send it to. That was worded really strangely.
That was a bunch of words.
Our email is liminalspacespod@gmail.com.
You can find us on Twitter at liminalspacepod and on Instagram at liminalspacespod.
Yeah, and we also have YouTube.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
we're on
want to
YouTube.
listen to us there instead of wherever you're listening to us now, or if you're listening to us on YouTube, hello.
Hello.
We see you.
Hello.
Welcome.
We have infiltrated the cameras.
We also would like to credit our intro and outro music as being Into the Woods by Purple Planet Music. And
yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at arsenic_new_lace.
Forgot about that part.
Arsenic_new_lace. I'm experimenting with pronunciations now.
Clearly.
Arsenic_new_lace.
Oh boy. Or you can follow me on Instagram, which is at Adele Bernadette.
Sure is.
And or Twitter. I do have Twitter, just don't use it very often. So you can, if you want me back on Twitter, come hound me, because I still have Twitter messages on, so I get like text messages when there's an interaction. So if I get hounded enough on my interactions, then I'm sure I'll come back.
And if you want me on Instagram, not happening.
No.
I got beef. We got beef. It's not happening.
That's fine. Anyways, that's about it.
Yeah.
Where is there it is.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. I've been Nick.
I've been Adele.
And you can find us next time in
The Liminal Spaces. Oh my god! This is my life! Can you calm down, please? Sit down. No, sit. Come on. Chill. Okay.